Yes. So it is a pleasure to introduce Zilia Balkansky-Sellés, and who is many things, but she's a wonderful poet, she's a dancer, she's a survivor, she's a warrior, she's many, many, many things, studied anthropology, so the folklore. Okay, so folklore. So I am going to turn the mic over to her, and we'll have a good time. Friends of Zilia, now is the time.
So this is a mix of poetry and prose, and most of it is new. There's one that is a repeat. Persephone Again, March 2022. Persephone, again and again, leaves her cozy underworld home, the surprisingly attentive hubby, and rises to assuage her mother's sorrow, peeks her head above the ground. Green sprouts poke up. Some days, some years, some centuries, she'd rather wait, warmed by the underworld fires, the glow of the arched fireplace. They forget, she says softly, whispering into the wind turned warm, birds twittering at her breath. I can only do so much. The sunflower seed bursts to sprout in the aftershock of the bombs, sacred earth everywhere, tainted in the mindless rituals of war, the thirst for power and oil hunger greed, forsaking the pure water of earth, the long starseed-hoed earth. The ice shelf fed by Glenser and Conger glaciers in Antarctica collapses, the Arctic ice melts, temperatures rise, the bombs burst. Persephone, patient, long eons are morning and night. And this is a little prose piece really in the works, drawn from a Facebook post from a few weeks ago, which there will be more. It's called the Barranco Wall. Let's talk about the 834-foot or 257-meter Barranco Wall, which I climbed along with my trekking companions on the 5th morning of an 8-day trek in Tanzania's Mount Kilimanjaro National Park in the summer of 2022, as we took our measured approach to the base and ultimately the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. For those who say and write that Kilimanjaro is just a hike, well, not so much. There's a fair amount of rock scrambling, both going up and coming down. Erin, one of my two paying companions on the trek, told me that in the blogs she read about climbing Kilimanjaro, someone had written with assurance that the Barranco Wall would be okay for anyone with a fear of heights, which I have, though a bit less after this trek. Whoever wrote that comment does not have a fear of heights, or to be more precise, a fear of falling. While getting to the summit of Kilimanjaro was a team achievement, as was climbing Barranco Wall, I felt a more personal sense of accomplishment making it up Barranco. Our two guides, Raymond and Elias, were supportive, protective, and helpful. When we got to the kissing rock, where one has to face into the rock wall to step around to the next ledge of rock up, Elias was ahead of me and reached back with a hand. Torn between a sense of pride that I wanted to be independent and a clenched stomach and anxiety that this step led to imminent death, I reached out with my right hand to grasp Elias's hand. Raymond, our lead guide, was standing on a little ledge below me as I stepped over, facing the wall to climb up to the next rock. Out of the corner of my eye, I was aware of his presence as a spotter, which, while reassuring, seemed an unlikely block to the tumble that would ensue were I to miss a step. And it was very clear to me, even in that moment, that the most likely cause for a misstep was the very fear I was feeling. In a moment of faith and surrender, as well as inevitability and stubbornness, I pivoted left from the stony, narrow trail to face the rock surface, which I suddenly noticed was brown and beige, speckled with black, beautiful in texture and color. Holding tightly onto Elias's hand, I took a step. Elias called out, Kiss the rock! In another moment of what felt like absurdity, my head tilted the 2 or 3 inches to the stone surface, cool, variegated brown with thin black veins and speckling, and I lightly kissed the rock. Elias giggled. A tiny well of annoyance, which provided its own energy, gave way to relief as I stepped up onto the next boulder of this zigzagging upward climb of ledges and rock scrambles of the steep Barranco Wall. The only way up was looking right down in front of me and slightly ahead at each step to see where I had to put my feet and where I had to hold on. The few times I glanced briefly further down or up, the threat of dizziness and vertigo edged in. Nope, no, just look ahead. And so one grasp and pull and clamber at a time, I made it to the top where the others who had already ascended, dozens of them from many trekking groups, were sprawled out drinking tea from thermoses, taking photographs, and looking out over the layer of white clouds above which we had ascended. The Barranco Wall marked the divide between the pleasant ramble of the preceding days and the increasingly steep climb that would lead to the summit of Kilimanjaro, which at 19,341 feet is the tallest mountain on the African continent and the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. At the top of the Barranco Wall, I started calling Elias Papa and calling Raymond Big Papa, and they in turn started calling me daughter and granddaughter, though they were both my juniors. The terms, both affectionate and occasionally annoyed in both directions, were the signals for the trust I placed in them and which they accepted, that they would safely guide me and the others through this trek to the rooftop of Africa, and that they were invested in not having me die on that mountain. So, that's a short, very much work in progress. Thoughts while rolling the garbage bin. Thoughts while rolling the garbage bin to the curb as a sliver of waxing crescent moon appears half sky up to the west. The bin, not half full, rumbles over the cracked concrete driveway. The trees on either side, not yet leafed in early spring, spokes of shadow against the dark sky, and the lights, amber and yellow from the windows of nearby houses. No one is walking by. No one else is rolling the standardized bins to the curb, or I don't hear them. A moment of quiet stability in breath and activity, the reliability of ingrained routine. I am doing this thing which is needful. I have scooped the cat's litter boxes, put in fresh pine pellets. The pine dust lingers on my sleeves. Fed the dog, Sutter, checked on the cats, carried out the Monday evening ritual. The quiet feels palpable, with spring rising up in tree trunks, unseen, unheard, but imagined, and daffodil petals that soon will drop and blend back to earth. Millions of years will breathe, come and go. This moment, barely a drop, no more, no less. I think of grand Beethoven symphonies and the clever twists of Gilbert and Sullivan operettas and Irish folk tunes drawn out by generation after generation of fine fiddlers. Can each give scale to the other without diminishing one, no more, no less? It may not even matter. It does not matter. The stars that were there all day, hidden by the brightness of our own star, glitter brighter as the darkness drawn by the earth's turn brings them into view. The Grasshoppers Curse. When Eos asked Zeus for immortal life, for her human love, she forgot to ask for endless youth, unending vigor, radiant vitality, for she hoped would accompany her through endless days. In the end, or at least the change of heart, realization, and frustration, she, under her own volition, turned the senile old man, withered and ranting, to a grasshopper. A different version would have him prune up under the weathering of time to the agile exoskeleton creature, harbinger of luck and fortune. We don't always know what we ask for when we ask for the easy solution, the obvious path. Jinn, compelled to grant wishes to their inadvertent human liberators, know the subtleties of desire and the human's easy distraction to surface gain. However long our view, it's not long enough. Unintended consequences litter the path of our daily walking while the grasshopper chirrups from beneath the debris. And let's see. Okay, we still have. This is one that I did before, slightly revised. It's called Flan Marina, for Marina, my grandmother. Eggs, milk, sugar, coffee can, low heat, slow cooking. 3 ingredients I know. The rest I don't know. The flan is in the narrow kitchen with the bright blue linoleum embossed with big white flowers. It's an ugly pattern. It's a small kitchen. It is bigger than the kitchen of the studio apartment of my middle childhood years. Marina Inocencia, my grandmother, whom I barely knew, made flan in that kitchen after she made it to New York City. Before that, there were short letters and awkward phone calls to Havana. My mother would put the phone in my hand. I had no Spanish, nothing useful. I did not know the person on the other end of the line. The 3 ingredients of flan I know in that dark, small kitchen in Jackson Heights. Inocencia, her given name, only on legal documents. Nene to her nieces. Marina was what I called her. Baby, blue eyes, alarmingly young, always. Eggs, milk, sugar, coffee can, low heat. Her daughter, my mother, told me that Marina worked in a shack in the countryside outside Havana, rolling tobacco when she was young. Later she sewed. She was a good seamstress all her life. What did she think, Inocencia Marina, of this handsome young Bulgarian off the ship? A 1920-something photo shows them side by side. She is lovely, he is handsome, she a doe-eyed Clara Barton, Lillian Gish, high cheekbones, translucent skin. He, young, slim, glowing, resembles in face slightly the gruff man of later years, but here he is not disappointed. They fought a lot, my mother tells me, and looked old when the years counted them still young. A few years and they both thickened. The light dimmed a little in their eyes, but Marina, with sounds of the sea and Mary in her name, kept the girlish sweetness in look and tone all the days of her life. Her losses were semi-hidden, disguised. Her husband would not let her join her festive family for parties on weekends. He looked down on the family he had married into. She was cut off from the vitality of the large family in which she was one of 7 children. She had 2 children and many abortions. After the first child, Lubin Jr., Bebo to everyone, was born, Lubin said he wanted no more children. Questions that could be asked now can never be answered. Marina fought to keep the pregnancy that brought her the one daughter, my mother. It may have been the strongest stand of her life. And she waited, after Castro, for 16 or 17 years to see her daughter and her only natural grandchild. She had a mastectomy in her middle years. That too was partially hidden by the drape of dresses and nightgowns. After she and Lubin took sanctuary in our shared 2-bedroom apartment in Jackson Heights, I saw her in the darkened bedroom through Adora Jar one early morning, sitting on the edge of the bed. Her nightgown had fallen open, one side of her chest smooth, flat, with a neat surgical horizontal scar where the breast had been, the other side a droopy but full breast. I looked and then moved away before she saw me. The hidden scar, the slightly flattened side of her dresses, her unself-consciousness, she bore what she bore and maintained a sweet, childlike sense. She liked dolls, which her few new friends and family gave her on birthdays in New York City. She liked sewing and created without patterns house dresses for my mother, a white blouse with ruffled collar, and a full purple and black skirt with a great sweep for my contra dancing. She crocheted delicate lace and small pot holders. A tiny blue handkerchief and a tiny white handkerchief in my scarf drawer are edged with her lace. They are stored, folded neatly, rarely used. When I played the nanny in Three Sisters, I took the lace squares out of the drawer, carried them in a costume pocket, and tucked in a sleeve. I thought of Marina and carried her in my body in each scene. She cooked well, without recipes, with accustomed ease. Her sweet concoctions, rice pudding, dulce de leche, wrought without effort. She poured ingredients into an old coffee can. She made a yellow golden flan with eggs broken and stirred to liquid, then solidified. The top burnt sugar, a rich caramel brown. A flan 6 inches across that sat pertly in the center of a green ceramic dinner plate with a sunflower painted on it, or on a white and blue knockoff of Dutch porcelain. Marina padded softly in pink slippers around the 2-bedroom apartment in Jackson Heights we moved into. Marina, Lubin, my mother Vera, 3 cats, and me, after Vera ransomed them out of Havana. I was in college when they got to New York. I did not know them. I found photographs of Marina in New York City with my mother and father at the Statue of Liberty before I was born, and standing in Battery Park in Lower Manhattan. Another black and white photo of Vera holding me as a baby, Marina looking on beatifically, the Renaissance light and look of paintings of the Holy Family. I don't remember, but the photos trigger sadness, regret, sweetness. Why did I not know this woman? When I knew they were coming to live with us, I thought, yes, I will learn Spanish. We will be a family, but I didn't, and we weren't, or we were, but not the way I hoped. No easy camaraderie, no easy blending. I ached in my arms and bones for something they could not deliver, nor could I. They got off the plane from Spain in New York City, transported to the 3rd-floor apartment on 79th Street in Jackson Heights. She brought me a yellow towel with my name Zilia embroidered on the end. Fraying, faded, folded, I keep it still. We were very different. In a little while, I left that apartment. My mother stayed dutifully for years until Lubin dropped from the fire escape and Marina dropped some 10 years later from a heart attack in the bedroom late one night. I felt her passing, although I did not get the call until the next morning. I slept by the phone that night, feeling a light in the 2-room studio in Ann Arbor, Michigan. For the briefness of their touch on my daily life, they are still here. We have come a long way. Old bitterness of missed opportunities has sweetened into tender remembrance. The fluid mixture of eggs and sugar, milk and heat in the coffee can rarely, barely resembles the gelatinous sculpture of the cooked flan. Eggs, milk, sugar, a little heat, a little time, a little patience of stirring, a little waiting. Should I do one more? Okay. Let's see. We either get Elephant Born or Requiem for the Earth. We'll do Requiem for the Earth and Species. Okay. In 10 billion years or so from our late 2020, when the yellow sun long-term red giant goes supernova, what will the lingering impulses be, if any, of the carbon-based life forms on that 3rd planet from the sun? The stardust, the glowing embers that fueled and brightened, heated and cooled the Earth, will capture the atoms of pulverized molecules of the first microbes captured in later rock that shifted and evolved and swam and walked and flew and dreamed. When the sun goes supernova, will any of Shakespeare's words resonate through the streams of light? Will the dust of the towers that tumbled on September 11th, 2001 on Manhattan flare out into the vast reaches of this galaxy, leaving a shadow of a shadow of a shadow of a shadow, fainter and fainter, of the bodies falling through the air to the ruptured pavement below? Will the gasp of a mother in a small village on Corsica in early spring 1732, watching her firstborn baby girl stand on her feet for the first time, catch a ride on a fast-moving flame? Will the births of saints and teachers, avatars and mystics, from Milarepa to Jesus, Mohammed to Buddha, Yemanja to Athena, and all the Celtic and Viking stars be noted in the flares and formations of light and fire? Will the orange crest flaming resonate with a deep orange and violet sunset off the cliffs of Monterey? The crack of a seagull dropping a clam onto rock be included in the detonation of lava, heated beyond human measure, heated beyond the glowing lava field spreading out from Kilauea and Mauna Loa? Will the cadence of ice ages advancing, retreating, covering, uncovering, be present in the cadence of the sun's last act of volition? In the billions of years preceding that final blast, at some point, there will be the last elephant, the last lion, the last shark, the last hummingbird, the last bumblebee, the last human, the last cat, the last pit bull dog, the last swan, the last carrier pigeon, the last neigh of the last Mongolian horse racing across the high steppes, the last of any of the songs of species, the stanzas of variations, the last fluff of the seeded dandelion that punctuates the species, that wraps up the niche, that offers a crescendo or vibrato or tremulous last note. All the plagues, all famines, the atrocities and the glories, bread-making and symphonies, shepherd tunes and mountain dances, ancient Greek vases and Pueblo pots will flame in the light of the red giant star blazing and pulsing into a new configuration. The in-breath and exhalation of ages of glacial ice growing, scouring land masses, leveling and reconforming hills and plains will shoot out in a molten expression. The seas, rivers, lakes, streams, rivulets, Victoria Falls, Niagara, and the Dead Sea, even when long gone, will have their dried ghost droplets flung out. Despair and glory, long nights of the soul, bright days of wonder and delight, alpine meadows, Arctic expanses, high sierras in the melted Rockies, Annapurna, Aconcagua, and the red rock in New South Wales will mingle, definitively blaze together as their shapes and light melt into the far reaches of space. And whether any traces remain on those flames or not, or have moved to other planetary bodies, galaxies, or spaces, the wholeness of this place, this moment, each of the instantiations of life is contained in that brightness of expansion.